So we're looking at monitoring and pest suppression in the landscape. So I'm going to talk about two pests here. We've got Asian gypsy moth and we've got dandelion. And you want to identify the pests. We've talked about this earlier in the quarter, key or secondary pests. I don't consider dandelions as a key pest, but certainly Asian gypsy moth is. It not only eats deciduous material, but it also eats conifers. So every year, the Washington State Department of Agriculture hangs these pheromone traps, and about 30,000 traps throughout Washington State. They check the traps for gypsy moths every few weeks during flight season, and that's June through September. And this is something that happened a couple of years ago. Last year, they don't have much documentation about. I don't know if they weren't publishing it or what, but these are some areas where they found gypsy moth and they were able to treat. They treated with Bacillus thuringiensis. You can see on the left here, Asian gypsy moth is quite a bit larger than the European gypsy moth. That's the one most people are familiar with. That's the one that's a big problem on the East Coast. DNA is really the only definitive way to know they've got it, but they did find it in a couple places in Washington State in 2019, so it was really a cause for alarm. So here's a comparison here. Female can fly up to 20 miles. Infestation spreads faster and more widely. They eat both evergreen and deciduous trees, and of course conifer trees are killed more easily following defoliation. That's the Asian gypsy moth. European gypsy moth, the female can't fly, feeds primarily on deciduous trees. It's of course still a very serious problem, but in our area the WSDA really focuses in on the Asian gypsy moth. So what they do is they do aerial applications of BTK, which is Bacillus thuringiensis christaki. These are naturally occurring bacteria that are approved as an insecticide in organic agriculture. So when you're looking at weeds in your lawn, you should do some sampling here. Here I've got areas that would be measured 3 by 3. And it should begin in the spring. So you measure 3 by 3 foot transects that are evenly spaced, and the number of the number of sites would depend on the size of the lawn. In this example, it would be 20 sites. Of course, the earlier the better, and in the case of dandelions, they have contractile roots which enable them to pull themselves deeper into the soil as the season progresses. And of course that root gets quite a bit longer. Okay, here's just some of the common weeds you might find in your turf. Of course, annual bluegrass, buttercup, chickweed, etc. Most of them are perennial, but chickweed is an winter annual, so monitoring for that should take place in the fall. So looking at your 20 transects in this example, there are 10 sites with 40% weeds. The other 10 are 10%. In calculations, it turns out there are 25% weeds. So research has shown that lawns with 20% weeds are not seen as weedy from the road. So it's really not as insurmountable as you might think. Things to think about: managing your turf weeds. Healthy turf can outcompete weeds. You want to reseed anytime you pull a weed. Check your soil pH. 6.5 is ideal for turf. And definitely avoid fertilization when annual weeds are germinating. You want to mow them higher and more often. Leave clippings on the lawn. That can provide 25% of your fertilizing needs. And fertilization should only take place once or twice a year. If you only do it once, it should be in the fall with a slow release fertilizer. Here are the types of turf grasses in our area. Fescues should be mowed to 2 to 2.5 inches. And in my personal experience, the best way to manage for weeds is to outcompete them with summer water. A lot of times you're hearing recommendations to not water your lawn in the summer because the lawn will come back. However, the weeds will continue to grow, and so you're just going to have a big problem. So in the summer, you're going to want to deliver an inch of water a week.